Crystal? Hello.
Good morning all, good morning committee, good morning to those online as we sit into our asset and infrastructure meeting of Thursday 11th of September 2025. I acknowledge we have members of the public in the room. Welcome along. Thank you for attending and thank you to staff. Moving through the agenda, I have received apologies.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, are we going to have the council prayer?
Why don't we start with the council prayer and then I'll go and back myself up and try and dig myself out of the hole that I've just put myself in.
Sorry.
Thank you for that. I will come back to those words with starting with the council. Thank you, Worship. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the districts we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Apologies to anybody that was very unintentional, and I do hope I have not offended. We'll come back to the agenda. Item 2, apologies. I have received apologies from Councillor Lambert, Councillor Maughan, Councillor Duncan. Quick scan of the room, all other committee members are here. I'll move from the chair that apologies be accepted. Seeking a seconder, Councillor Carter, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. That motion is carried. Item 3 on the agenda, which is public forum. I've not been notified of any public forum. Looking around, no, that's correct. Item 4, conflict of interest. Members, you're well aware. If you feel you have a conflict of interest, please take the opportunity to raise that now, or if it occurs to you during our discussions, I will accept it from the chair that you just raise your hand and let me know, and we can discuss the potential of a conflict at that stage. Moving now on to item 5, which is a confirmation of the order of business. We do need to make a change to the order of business today, specifically relating to the Martin Pool Development Design, due to the fact that the information was not available at the time that this agenda was produced. I understand that it is not in the order papers and therefore it's not online, so I will read the recommendation. The recommendation reads, this is at confirmation of order of business item 5, that the late item 9.4 Martin Pool Development Design roof design options be dealt with as part of the agenda for the Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting on the 11th September 2025. The item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting, as the information was not available when the agenda was produced and needs to be considered to ensure no delays in the project. This item was moved to be item 6 in the confirmation of minutes. So just to clarify that is just to address the fact that this information is late coming to hand and could not be in the agendas as being sent. I'm happy to accept it so that they can be discussed. Looking for a seconder, I'll move. Seconded Councillor Carter. Any discussions on that? Being none, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you for that. So with that in mind, we will move now through to the confirmation of order of minutes. You will have all received those minutes as they have been well circulated to you. We'll step through starting at page number 8, 9,
It's just
item 9,
this
page 9.
query on item 10, page 9, traffic management costs. Officers advised there will be ongoing requirement to coordinate the costs of traffic management, and my understanding is that the risk-based approach cannot kick in until, is it May? That it doesn't start immediately.
If I recall that discussion meeting, that was just raised, as I say, that was going on the requirement that came to us from our roading department when that item was discussed about that. So I'm not quite sure where your concern is on that one, Your Worship.
The question is just when does that approach kick in? That's just my question of clarification. I think for you, Mr. Chair.
We are just accepting the minutes, so if the item's correct, but you'd like to, is that not something that may be in a follow-up, or would you seek that we get some clarification on that now?
Up to you, but I wonder if
looking, seeing as we have our roading manager in here, do we have a quick answer for that one?
Yeah, we're looking at 1st of May to start rolling it out, getting stuff up to speed, and then going live with it 1st of July. The requirement from NCTA, I think we have to have something in place by the end of this year. So that how we're going to manage the implementation.
but just wonder if that is the case, whether it should just be added to the minutes as a recognition, because that's was my understanding.
I wonder if we could mention that as part of Darren's roading update, because the minutes were what was recorded at the last meeting, not.
Yeah, that's
Not an
correct.
agenda.
Yeah, so we can't amend those minutes. But I would see that as being in the roading update report to be included in these minutes would be appropriate, and or if it's not a follow-up action to be key. So
Okay, just wherever you want to deal with it.
thank you for that. So moving on now at page 10, this is of the minutes. 11, 12, 13, 14.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Moved, Worship Mayor, seeking a seconder, Councillor Fidel Getty, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. We now move back to the earlier recommendation as stated in today's order paper. I will pass to our staff and team to take us through this, and thank you for putting this together for us at short notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we have got Toby Mason on the line from Create Architects Engineers, and I would offer Toby to take us through it. I think I will just describe quickly where this is from. We completed the detailed geotech on the site, which then, when looking at the foundations and what strengthening is required, would then drive the design that's needed. It needed additional strengthening of the foundations that we did not know before we got the work done, which meant the price would have gone up. Great. Then started looking at alternatives to bring the price back into what we discussed with council. And part of that journey was then to look at, for instance, making the roof a bit simpler. So if you think of the original design where there was some ETFE and some color steel, the intersection between the two different materials makes things more complex. So that was the first move. And then they went on and on to a place where we are back to potentially where we agreed on with budgets. So that's the general theme of the report today. And then I will ask Toby to just step us through some more of the details of how they went from the larger foundation strengthening to the design of option 1 that's on the table.
All right, so Toby, if you can just take us through where you've got to with you and the Create team. The reports have been circulated. Councillors are aware of them. We have seen them. We received them a couple of days ago. So just to give you an update. No, sometimes I know it's difficult from Zoom, but that's where we're at in the room. So we'll pass over to you for an update.
Well, thanks. Good morning, all. Apologies. First off, I've got several screens, so if I look away, I'm just looking at the other screens that I'm looking at you. So thanks. As Arno said, we've been working through the scheme, and I think what was tabled originally as the way forward was to look at a re-roof option, and that was our engagement. That included a recladding of the whole roof, reinstatement of new timber beams across the pool hall, and whatever associated seismic strengthening would be required to support that. Alongside that, then, we were to look at new heating and ventilation for the pool hall to bring that up to code compliance, along with the reinstatement of lighting. So as we progressed, and as Arno said, we developed the scheme, we looked at the strengthening and combination, and we looked at any scope changes and impacts on cost. Again, as Arno alluded to, quite quickly after the geotech report was confirmed, the foundations could be reassessed, and we were struggling to get those to work. And so that increased a scope of work to strengthen one side of the pool hall foundations in order to get the building to at least try and get close to the 67%, or grade A as it's now, grade B as it's now in its seismic performance. So that's our target. When we then look back at the roofing options, we were working on a scheme with a central roof light of ETFE, this clear light or solar controlled light over the pool hall, and then a solid metal roofing surrounding that. As we stepped through the design, it became apparent that there were some advantages, certainly in terms of cost and construction, to run a total steel frame option where we replace all of it with steel and run the ETFE, the transparent, just have one cladding system, the full width of the roof. And so we've developed two options. One is option 1, which looks at a lightweight steel roof. The second is reinstatement of the timber beams with the ETFE cladding. So both have essentially the ETFE cladding as the whole roof material that insulates and weather tightness of the whole roof. It's what sits under it as two different options. Option 1, when we again worked this through, came out to be relatively cheaper than the option 2 with the timber beams. Both options offer the advantage in terms of a reduction in seismic mass because we're using a lightweight roof. But in terms of the flow-on effects of seismic performance of either schemes, 1 and 2, they are comparable. They're very similar. So that's where we are at. We've done a heating and ventilation scheme that sits alongside that, and we've provided, I think, that's come out in the reports, your heating and running costs of those two schemes. Over to you, Arno.
Thank you, Toby. Perhaps Arno, have you got anything good to say? I see a couple of hands up for questions. Perhaps I can just check and see if they're questions directly related to Toby or.
Just if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, just the reason for the whole document and why we put it together is there is a move away from the original brief where the original brief we agreed upon was to retain the timber structure. So this will be moving away from that, and hence we need some direction from council. And the other thing is because of the timelines that we are under, we do not wait until the end of the month to be able to continue with the design. We need to get a move on.
Yeah.
And hence the urgency to get some guidance from council to allow us to move along.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Loudon, I think you had your.
Thank you. Toby, a couple of things. I was curious as to why Hereford Street wall was the only one assessed to be strengthened as opposed to the other three walls within, or two walls within that structure. Can you explain that for me, please?
Yeah, so we have, when we looked at the original documents, it became apparent that the street side, if I show you, if I bring up a render, then I can talk to. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. There we go. Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, can you see the image on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the proposed option one that we're looking at. On the left-hand side is the street facade. Yeah, and on the left-hand side is the street facade. We're looking back at reception at the far end. And to the right-hand side is the teaching pool off with a ramp. Yeah, is everybody with me?
Yeah.
When we looked at the original designs and we had the foundation report the soils report from Initia, it became apparent with the combination of those two things that this facade along the street is actually effectively a soft pin at the base, and the whole building is supported predominantly by grid B on this other side, on the western side. So what we're proposing now, or need to do in order to reach the target seismic performance, we need to strengthen along the left-hand side here. These bases need to be exposed because they don't provide any overturning stability to these columns.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, did that answer your question before I go to other questions in the room?
Yes, but there's a subsequent question to that.
I'll take a supplementary question if it's directly related, yep.
Toby, the geotech report said that the pool walls were, or the structural walls were 5 meters from the stream. On the stream end, a visual over the fence, it doesn't look like 5 meters at all. It looks like half that distance. What's the impact of that end wall on earthquake strengthening and stability for the whole complex?
Well, I think what we are not, in terms of create, we're charged with looking at the building. I understand Arno was working with Initia and doing some subsequent slope stability assessment on that bank. The risk.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. I think what's important here, Crate are the designers of the new complex. Your geotech reports and other such things will form part of any future decisions when it comes to build and considering processes as we go through. We have had a geotech report that largely didn't indicate any concerns, but I'm sure that's an initial report and there'll be further work involved in that. Would I be correct in saying that now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and just to Councillor Loudon's question there, I think these are two separate things. Toby is completely correct. They're looking at the building in isolation. If we find in the second study that there's some instability on that side, then those geotech engineers will come up with solutions that we can consider to stabilize that. But the two things are two different things.
Toby's just talked about the Hereford Street wall and the other wall, but there's no conversation about the stream wall on the end and what is required to stabilise that.
So we will get that information back from WSP, maybe Ishwa by end of the month.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have, sorry, in terms of the building stability, then we have assessed the seismic performance of the two end walls, and they have cantilevered footings, and we're happy with those meeting the grade B seismic performance.
Okay, thank you for that. Your worship, question from you?
Thanks, Toby. It looks great. There's been on social media a few questions raised. I'm presuming that the ETFE covering has a UV screening component within it.
It does, yeah. So with the transition away from, so we're presenting two options, yeah, that both relate to the use of ETFE. It was originally intended to be just a central light well akin to what was just been introduced at Rotorua Aquatic Centre, where we replaced the roof and only had the central portion of ETFE over the pool hall as that, and then the surrounding areas above the surrounds were tin, yeah, metal tin. That was to provide shading, additional shading to the surrounds. The difficulty is this scale of this facility means that it's quite complex to do those. We can do it, but it's slightly more expensive if we were to keep the ETFE just over the pool hall rather than extend it and that would introduce two cladding systems if we were to do that. And there's a complexity with that. But we're not saying you can't do that, yeah? So what we've presented, these two options are the full ETFE across the whole surrounds. And to answer your question, it has a UV inhibitor within the foil, as all of them do in New Zealand, or most of them should, apart from Waitomo Caves. But all of the ones done most recently that we've been involved with, we've specified the use of UV. And on Rotorua, the solar frit pattern, the amount of sunlight passing through that, again, is much more limited than at coastlands, for example. On the surrounds, though, because we've extended the foil the full width, we're proposing the introduction of white foil, as you can see in the image, on the left, or covering the full perimeter of the surrounds. That completely stops direct sunlight passing through the foil. Okay, I hope that's... So yes, both schemes have a UV inhibitor.
Just before I go any further, there's a subsequent question, Your Worship.
The questions raised also about the lifespan of this type of material. My understanding is the lifespan of this material is at least equivalent to, for instance, a metal cladding roof, etc. That it's not something that deteriorates quickly.
No. So ETFE is a very durable material. It's a derivative of Teflon, and it's far exceeds Kingspan warranty in terms of its lifespan.
Councillor Dalgety, you were seeking some clarity on an earlier comment from Toby, correct?
Sorry, can you just take me back through the film or the comment that he made just before? I didn't understand what he was meaning.
Are you referring to the shading and the different shading
Yeah.
on the roof? Is that what you're seeking clarity on? Toby, did you hear that?
Yeah, so sorry if can I just show you a second image that might help explain. Can you see my screen still?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
picture.
it hasn't changed.
Oh, is it? Okay, sorry, I've just shared. I'm not so familiar with.
So I think you stop sharing and then choose your other one.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Sorry.
But we have got.
You know what's interesting is the ones that we have do not
Is
have.
it?
No.
Okay, we've got that screen on there now, yes.
Okay, it's unlike Teams where it highlights the red image, so you know. So this, just to try and hopefully answer your question, is with the ETFE, it provides light and transparency in the space. Yeah. And what we did Coastlands Aquatic Centre with a full ETFE roof as the first example of ETFE use in New Zealand. And we recommended some subsequent shading devices within the facility after those didn't get put in. And there have been some comments made that Coastlands is quite warm in when it gets very hot outside. Coastlands also doesn't have any cooling. At that time when it was designed, no one was doing cooling on swimming pools in New Zealand. Both of those things now have moved on, and since Coastlands, we've introduced cooling, the ability to cool the space through the heating and ventilation requirement, and we're introducing more shading to the surrounds to stop direct sunlight. So at Rotorua, and how it was presented initially as our thoughts was to have a similar approach where the ETFE was over the pool water only, and then to the sides was metal roof, insulated metal roof. So this image is what the roof before, above, now how it looks. So we've been trying to juggle the balance then between arriving at a cost-effective option for Martin we're trying to balance that with performance, clearly. So where we have arrived in this scheme currently being tabled in option 1, and hopefully are you seeing now oh no, you're not. Okay. I can see it on the screen, just forgive me.
Just while you're sharing that, Councillor Dalgety, do you understand
Right,
the
so
question as
it's
to
a
what's being done? It's additional shading to the sides, so it's more opaque or something like that might be a good word to use to reduce that where people may be sitting as opposed to those sit in the.
Use
Yeah, so
sails.
can you see the screen now?
I see.
Which is the clear bit through the middle and the slightly shaded bits outside to address
Thank you.
that.
So we're trying to provide open and honest information to Martin Council to allow you to make the decision. And so this is a compromise between Rotorua and in that we've introduced white foil, as you see, can you see on the top where my cursor is? White ETFE, and that stops the sunlight shining through onto anybody. And then we have the solar control frit that you can kind of see through, so you can still see the clouds over the pool hall, but you won't be able to see anything through the white foil to the sides. And that in some way goes to alleviate and provide this, eliminate the sunstrike risk on any of the surrounds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Toby. I think that's where a little bit of the confusion's come. The image that you've got on the screen there is obviously a more updated one from the ones.
It is, and sorry. So I should have pointed that out. We were working at speed to try and get you these.
And yeah, thank you for your work in that, and thank you also for considering some of the concerns that have been earlier raised by the committees and trying to address. One thing I would say, complex and difficult seldom go in the same conversation as cost effective. So I understand that you're trying to work the best that we possibly can. Further question from Councillor Charlotte?
Yeah, just with this new roofing, Toby, will that help with the pool heating as well?
So what we found on Rotorua is we ran a solid roof. So I should just make out, if council wanted to, we could reinstate a metal insulated roof for this facility. That's and we can look at the cost impact of that. There would be probably they would come out about the same price, with solid roof. What we've tried to do is introduce natural light. And when we've done our thermal studies of Rotorua, we ran a solid roof against an ETFE option, and the ETFE provided an advantage year-round energy cost. And that's in winter you get slightly more heat loss from the pools, but in summer you get heat gain in the pool water. And so we can use both, we get sunlight hitting the water and warming the water up directly through its radiant heat, but also we capture that heat within the air and we use that in a heat recovery. So both schemes reduce energy. The other benefit of foil is, as you can see from the picture, there's no need to light the space during daylight hours. Yeah, so it dramatically affects the artificial light requirements also for any of for the pool hall space, and it only then requires lighting at night. So those three elements then mean that the foil scheme provides you with a more cost-effective, energy-efficient design than the solid roof option.
Okay, thank you, Toby. Councillor Shan, that answer your question?
Yes.
Councillor Dalgety?
Thank you, Toby. Just reflecting on our little community pool in Hunterville, where we have effectively used solar to heat the pool. Should we be considering that more in this situation then? So we've used heated alkathene on the roof to heat the pool.
So this is a passive heating system, yeah, where sunlight enters the space. If you're using photovoltaics or thermal tubes, hot water tubes, they all offer different methods of heating and either the water or the air or providing electricity through solar. So each of them have their merits. Yeah, depends on what you're trying to achieve. What I think we were asked to do is bring a change in introducing natural light into what was quite a dark space. So again, like at Rotorua, we had the council were faced with the same dilemma of spending quite a lot of money for a re-roof and having nothing to show for it. And so by introducing the natural light, having the ability to introduce the ETFE meant that we were at comparable cost, but we had natural light. So we changed the environment, as you can see from those previous images, quite considerably within the same kind of cost program budget.
Okay. Thank you, Toby. Councillor Dalgety, you understand that? You happy with that explanation? And I'll go to Councillor Loudon for a question. Councillor Loudon?
Toby, just on the roof durability, my reading of ETFE suggests that it doesn't take adhesives very well. If for example, the roof was punctured or damaged in some way, how is that roof fixed? Does it require a whole roof replacement, or how?
That's a great question. So as you can tell from my accent, I come from the dark side, UK. And there was a lot of work done. It's a non-fragile roof, so it's not like glass in that it is actually very resilient to impact loading. Yeah, it's unusual in it looks fragile, but it's not. You can walk on it. Yeah. If you were to puncture it with a knife, then it would require remediation or patch repair to that. What we're proposing, there's two options. One is option one has triangular cushions and option two has rectangular cushions. Yeah, you can see from the roof plan, hopefully in the diagrams that we've provided to you. So if someone were to damage the roof, it would be the replacement of a cushion that would require it. It's unlikely that well, it would have to have a malicious intent. Yeah. But if there was a malicious intent, the fan keeps going, and depending on the scale of it, you would then need to remediate the foil temporarily and then replace the cushion, one of the cushions.
Let's hope we're not faced with that. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up for further questions around the room. Looking to move the item on. Councillor Loudon?
I just a question. The the pool itself is deemed non-compliant in its depth. And there's been talk around the table about the possibility down in the future of either reconfiguring the pool or raising the sides to increase the depth and hence water loading. Does that change, does that sort of have an influence on our earthquake strengthening and the loading within the structure?
So we with Arno and the team, we looked at a potential consolidated asset. I don't know whether that was passed to council or looking at reconfiguring the water spaces in order to get them to work much more effectively for more users. At the moment, that's not part of our brief, but in theory, you can raise the depth of the pool to meet compliance. You're correct. Dive entry is limited in its current configuration. The pool depths limit that ability to have formal dive entry to the 50-meter pool. And so we have not done a study. We've looked at the building, but the pool structure is not within our scope to look at in terms of assessing seismic performance. But it's felt that its pools inherently are low risk in terms of risk to life in terms of a seismic event. Yeah, but we have not assessed the structural performance of the pool in our assessment today.
Thank you, Toby. Before I move to look for a recommendation on the report, I'll just pass to our Chief Executive for comment to wrap us up.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make the point that obviously Toby has done a lot of work on this, and also it's because of the reports that we've been able to provide and the ones we haven't got yet. And the reason for the late item today is to keep the project moving. But I just want to make the point that we are still working to the timeframes that we have agreed to, and that is reported each bi-monthly in the assets report. So the timeline for the design expected to be completed by the end of October. So what we're hoping today is we can get a bit of guidance that will come through to council at the end of September. So that means a tender process sort of early next year, around February. So just want to make that point that that's the timeframe we're still working to. We are pushing Toby quite hard on this to achieve those timelines. So it's just important that we actually remember that, and we do not want to have delays if we can possibly help it for a number of reasons.
Thank you, Carol. I'm looking to move recommendation one that be received. I believe I had a mover from Your Worship the Mayor. Thank you. I'll second from the Chair. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Moving now on to recommendation 2, which again is up there. This is bringing forward from the later recommendation in the order paper as early instruction. Recommendation 1, that the Assets and Infrastructure Committee recommend to council that staff to proceed with option either 1 or 2, either of those to be deleted, to develop the further designs as per the report which you have already received, as per the report that has been circulated, and as per the discussion that we have had today. I will move from the chair, if I may, so that we can open this up for discussion. That council recommend option 1 for staff to design and develop further. Seconded from Worship the Mayor. We now have that motion on the table with a seconder. Seeking speakers, either for or against, searching the room. Councillor Loudon.
I'd like to record for you this year my abstaining from this vote. I think that the reporting so far has not allowed councillors to assess the situation adequately, and I'm concerned that there are very loose statements around costings. We have no costings at all. Just very loose indications. So I think from the chair, Councillor Loudon, you've indicated that you'll be abstaining from the vote. So therefore, by abstaining from the vote, I don't know that it's
particular project appropriate for you to be speaking to a motion which you've chosen to not to abstain from. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I am seeking discussion on the motion as it sits on the floor. Your worship.
Look, I support the motion. We need to get on with this. There have been a number of questions raised by Councillor Loudon in terms of seismic testing and all of those sorts of things. It goes through a consenting process. It's that simple. To gain the consents, there are legal requirements that are covered exactly the same way in terms of the money. We've been advised, all of council have been advised around the indicative costings. They are indicative costings. There is a tender process that comes to council to be accepted. I think the option one looks fantastic. I think the combination of being able to see sunlight open up a very dark space is brilliant. And I'd encourage councillors to support it.
Further speakers to or against? Councillor Dalgety.
I'll speak in favour of the motion. Basically, I'm very happy with the aesthetics of it and the costings that we've been, indicative costings we've been given thus far. It's been cheaper than option 2.
Further speakers around the room? Other councillors? Being none, as the mover of the motion, I'll speak. I think we've got a little bit of confusion that has started to come into this process. Create are the designers / the architects of what we have requested them to go and do. They are not the builders. We are simply creating a design to give guidance to a tender process to enable us to push on with this project. The tender will require building consents and whatever other structural consents are going to be required. Just because we're the owner of the building, we are not exempt from that process. So it's important to remember that this is just the next logical stage to move on. We also got to take a step back and say that we have had some indications of costings provided to us on a number of occasions. But it is not appropriate, particularly in a public forum, for us to be putting those costings out when we are about to send our costings out to anybody who may be tendering. Why would you do that? We've got an indication of budget. We've had all indications that from Create that we can work within the budgets we have indicated. And therefore I support the fact that there is no budgets out on this particular matter. It's absolutely logical to do so. We've also got to remember the original reason why the pool was closed was because there was a failure of a beam. Council stepped back and said, let's take a holistic approach of what this pool looks like and how can we improve it? Let's not just patch it up. How can we improve it, make it better? And how can we do it in stages that will enable us to add additional benefits and features in the future as demand is required and as budgets allow? I think the best option that we've got in front of us is in fact option 1, and I would endorse the council to support. I'll take that as my speaking to and my right of reply, all wrapped up in one. So with that, if I'm seeking anybody speaking against the motion, I'm noting that we have one abstaining. I will now seek that the motion now be put as recorded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Could you please note the one abstention? Okay, thank you, Toby. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your continued work on the project on our behalf.
No problem.
And thank you for making yourself available to come and step into our meeting and push on with this, what is an important project for us and our community as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Bye.
Okay, we now can move back on to, just give me a minute here to catch up our meeting. And we have follow-up actions. Can I just catch up in that? Excuse me. Actions on the screen, I've seen they've lost. Seem to have lost it on my screen. Okay, thank you. Sorry, my screen's just lost me for a moment, just catching up. Apologies for that. So we're moving up now to follow-up actions is the next item on our agenda. We'll step through at item 1 on the agenda. Any comments, any updates, any actions required? Councillor Delgety?
I see there was a meeting on the 1st of September. Are we able to get an update there? I actually drove the road myself recently, and yes,
Update from staff on that one. I see Arno, Darren, Andy are here from staff on that one. That's still with my meeting's been held.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I did not attend that meeting. We can ask Mr. Black. I think Mr. Black attended that to give us a
Darren,
quick update.
update on that, please.
Yeah, we had a meeting with some senior managers from NZTA, Andy Carroll, Hastings Deputy Mayor, a group manager as well from over that way. I think the intent from Mayor Andy was to push the the adoption of the road as being a state highway. That was pretty much a definite no. We also asked for him to consider special purpose status of the road, which would mean we get advanced or enhanced FAR. That was a no. We discussed the NLTP this year or this next 2 years has been our current issues. They didn't really come forward with anything other than we're now getting NZTA to basically go over our programs and see if we're on track. So we're working through that now with them. Excuse me. So I spent this week just going through our renewal programs, which we are on top of. But maintenance, they're wanting seal pavement maintenance, unsealed pavement maintenance, reseals and rehabilitation projects for the next 2 years to be put in front of them so they can assess our programs. But we're only just over 2 months into a new contract. We haven't got 2 years of maintenance ahead of us. We've got data from Higgins and what was left on the table when they left, but it's a little bit difficult to expect that we could put that to them.
Comment from you, Your Worship, as we've just heard you attended that meeting.
Yes, I not only attended it, I asked for it. Put this in perspective, we have a difficulty with this road that could well get worse. So if the rail deal falls over, we have another 800 to 1,000 tonnes on that road per day. And it is unsustainable. The damage that we face on that road is significant to the stage where we've had reports that we will not be able to do major maintenance on any other network road of significance for the next 2 years. That is critical. So there's a whole series of things go through here. And in terms of next steps, I think this was always going to be step 1 because NZTA have removed the amount of funding that we are requiring. And they're not going to want to classify it as a special purpose road. That's going to be their position. They're focused on roads of national significance. Why do I see this as step 1? Because the next steps are a regional approach from both sides of the ranges. It is getting all of the Hawke's Bay councils together, all of Horizons councils together, and taking an approach beyond NZTA at a highly political level. And that can be by way of regional infrastructural funding or applications made to regional city deals, those sorts of political options. But if we hadn't gone through this stage first, it would be difficult to go through the second stages.
Grounds of that, Your Worship, I'm assuming there's no point in asking you if you want this to be taken off the actions list, and you would very much like to see it in the forefront of mind.
We just have to fight and fight and fight for this.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Thank you, Darren, for your explanation on that. Councillor Dalgety, happy with that response to your question?
yeah, I think just a comment that it's interesting to me how fast it seems to have deteriorated. So I drove it in July and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months later, it is pretty bad.
Clearly a concern that His Worship the Mayor is very much aware of and is campaigning for on our behalf. So
Yeah.
Andy, follow comment?
Look, the issue is literally trucks pulling trucks and both sides of the road. And now I was over the road about a week ago. And because repairs can't be done until January, February, because of the temperature required to do those sorts of repairs, it's likely to be significantly worse. And I thank Darren and I thank the staff and Tanya and the Mayor of Hastings who recognise the importance of this network.
Big concern because there's a big cost to us as ratepayers. So let's keep that well and truly on our follow-up actions list. And thank you, Darren, for your work in that space. Item number 2, Arno says in progress. Is that an item that there's no further updates and is it something that we seek to remain on the action list? With that, just checking it.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we haven't had time to share with them, but we will.
Okay. Darren, seems to be a fairly easy one to address. Update on item 3, which is Hawkstone Road fire hydrant, it's just work as usual type thing.
Yeah, we're going to remove that barrier due to the water main issues and relocate it.
Okay, you're aware of that. Does it need to be on our follow-up actions list? And I would seek guidance here. It's a very operational matter. I wonder if that should be removed. Any objections from around the committee on that's on item 3? Thank you. We can note that one.
With that, if I may have informed the local fire brigade regarding that action.
Sorry, that it's going to be removed or that there is an action in place.
There is an action in place. Have them informed of what's happening.
Okay, would that come from you, Arno or Darren? Would that be in your space to perhaps catch up with the local fire chief and fire brigade? Take that as a note to let them know that you're aware of it and addressing. That's appropriate. Thank you, Councillor Carter. Looking at item 4, don't think there's any further updates on that apart from what's in our reports later today.
And it will be ongoing until it's
Ongoing, yes. Item 5, I think we should leave that there. That's Calico line updates.
Can I just give a
Yep.
quick update? Mr.
Item
Chair,
5.
what we've done with this one, we're looking at a water line renewal down Calico line. And we have now combined the 2 projects and it's going to go out to tender. So we're going to shift the pipe across to the same side as where the footpath's going to be so we can do the 2 together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
Councillor Dalgety, question on item?
No, just comment. I was thrilled to see that, you know, the sensibility of that. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, good work for thinking ahead on that one, team. Item number 6. Arno, it's noted as complete that I think it was a matter that Mayor Andy brought to the table, just seeking that status of that and go to Arno for an update there.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just to update the committee, we went up there, had a look, took water samples, had the samples analysed. The water quality is generally good. There are a couple of things in there that would require treatment that are quite tricky. So the water is hard, the hardness is high, and there are sulfides in there. So it would require quite a complex treatment change. It is also quite a bit further than our existing source. So on the back of that, we've gone back to both the landowner and the member up in Tai. Happy to say at this point, we won't pursue this any further.
Thank you. So that is an item now is complete and can be removed as per the questions. Thank you. Councillor, Mayor Andy?
So, yeah, just this is one where we really pass thanks on to Matt Thomas. And I'm quite happy to do that. Great initiative, could well have saved us and given us some more resilience. However, that isn't the way it's played out.
And an option for us to consider, and thank you, Anna, and your team for looking at that as an open option. Obviously, item number 7 stays in place here. That's the Martin Water Strategy. Item 8, still a difficult one, but I think it's probably got some merit, so I'd like to see it stay on there. That's with the regards to the possibility of having some sort of an open day so that people can better understand what's involved in producing our water. And I note that item 9 is listed as complete, and that appears to be appropriate. Comment on that? And that's item 9, follow-up actions list. Toby, you can, feasibility of disability parks in the town centre update. Council staff who added repainting of the disabled parks works program of the roading contractor.
Yeah.
So could we note that that is also listed as complete and therefore should be removed from the project's updates as per the earlier discussion that we had? Is that item? Kezia, did you manage to capture that? And you have done. Thank you. I'll move that the follow-up actions be received. Seeking a second to Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Right, the Chair's report. So thank you. I thought I'd take the opportunity here. I was giving some thought to a Chair's report and sort of putting down a few notes and other such things as to where I thought things were at. It occurred to me in my thinking that I may well or could be deemed to have been stepping into electioneering in some of my comments. So I've decided to refrain from a written report based on that and based on the position that we find ourselves at this stage of the triennium. So my focus today on a Chair's report is really to the committee and the staff that we have worked with for the last 3 years. I think what's really been pleasing is there has been a huge amount of work that this committee has undertaken over the last triennium. We have had a huge number of workshops. We have received some very, very detailed information that we've all had to try and digest and understand, and then do our own research, on. We have come back and had very robust discussions at our workshops. That has been pleasing. And we have had robust debates around our council table. And that is also pleasing, and it is healthy, and that is a healthy way of which democracy works around our table. And so I thank you all for your comments. We haven't always agreed. We haven't always voted unanimously, but one thing I can say is all the comments that have come from around the table have always been with the best interests of the ratepayers and the people of Rangitikei at the forefront of your decision-making processes. So I do thank you very much for your time and effort. It's a lot of work, as you well know, and I congratulate you all for the work that you've put in. Also, thanks to the staff, as this is the last workshop for this training with assets. Yeah, thank you. I mean, you're very tolerant. Is what I would say, and I'll leave that as that comment from there. But also a special thanks to Kezia, quietly sitting over here in the background. She beavers away diligently, recording our minutes and documenting and everything as accurately as she can to ensure that the updates and information are out to the public. She also controls things like Zoom and technology. When things go wrong, Kezia was able to step us in and help us out. So thanks for your work there, Kezia. We do appreciate that. So if that could be considered as a tabled report or a verbal report, I'm happy to leave it at that and move from the chair that be accepted by the committee. Seconding from Councillor Sharland. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thanks, Tim. Your worship.
Yes, thank you. Just with regard to that report, it's all been received and accepted, etc. But I just want to thank you for your chairmanship.
Yeah.
It is a challenging position. There's a huge amount of work that has come in front of us, as you quite rightly point out, and I think you've handled it incredibly well.
Thank you, worship. Moving on to item 9, roading update. Passing to you, Darren, Transport Manager, Roading Transport Manager. Thank you.
Nothing earth-shattering in here. We're sort of in the period of BAU, if you like, through winter, as long as we don't get weather events, nothing too startling. Just a few updates here. Maintenance contract, we're ticking along pretty well into our 3rd month now. Relationship's going well with Downer. We're getting on with things. It's settling in pretty well. Next step will be when we get into our building and start working as a team together. They'll be a lot more cohesive when we're sitting together. So yeah, physical activities, as I said, it's ticking along. Most of the boys come over from Higgins, so they know our network pretty well. Planning for our pavement and surfacing renewal is pretty much done. We're fine tuning that with NZTA as we discussed just before. So there might be some shuffling of different sites, but within this NLTP for 24 to 27, it's what we're looking for. Our intent was to, as soon as we finish this program, move into the next one. We've got a new set of condition data that we collected earlier this year. So we'll run that through our software program to get a database program, if you like, and we'll compare that against what we've got and cherry pick for next year. I don't think the rehabilitation sites are going to change, but reseals probably will. We'll be working towards that next year with Diana. So the next image there was basically showing you that this year's program is predominantly in the north. Taihape Napier, as we've discussed. Some of the stuff in Taihape there has been deferred from last year. We didn't get through it all. With Higgins contract timing out, there was a few issues getting motivation there, but we've pushed that into this year. So 3 pavement rehabs on Taihape Napier Road, 36 k's of chip sealing, and a little bit of AC that's in Martin on the roundabout down here. We're not 100% sure if that will be done this year or next year. Yeah, so just following on from that, modelling, we call it, when we crunch the numbers with software, that'll give us a 10-year program. So we'll as time goes on, we'll keep regenerating a 10-year program, so we'll have it stacked up ahead of us.
So is this physical looking and then a modelling, is that a new process or is that what we've always done?
It's new for us. We haven't done it here before.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you
So
very much.
it's really maximising the use of data. We've had the data before, but we've used spreadsheets and maps and things like that rather than using a computer software program to do it.
Right, thank you.
That's the long question. Through the chair, and the data that you're collecting, is that through your inspectors or through request for service or combination, or is there other streams?
It's a combination. So the model, it's a whole lot of basically gates where you'll have a data parameter and it'll be, say, a 1 to 10 scale, and it might be a 5. And there'll be these triggers within the software. So if it was a 4, it might trigger. If it was a 5, it wouldn't, or something like that. So we've got all these data parameters, and it's collected by we call a high-speed data survey. And we had Woods was the company, I think. They run around with a vehicle with laser profilers and roughness meters and all sorts of techie equipment. Benefit for us is NZTA completely covers the cost of that, where they haven't done in the past. So we use that. We also use our fault information from the inspectors picking up faults on the ground. Again, it just goes into that software algorithm. They look at the fault category, the size of the fault, type of fault, all those kind of things. And that generates the prioritised work program.
Your worship.
Yeah, thank you. If I go to page 18, and the lovely map and the 2 blue dots on the Gentilani Road.
Yeah.
It looks to me, in terms of the writing, is quite small, but are these on the Annie, or because it looks as though it's pre-Ngāmatea?
Yeah, we've got 3 sites up there. There's one long one about maybe 1.6 kilometres, and then there's 2 on the Annie. So the short sections, you probably won't even see them on this. Yeah.
So in essence, we've got another blue dot on a very short section.
Yeah. So
Which is the sort of 200 metres of.
Yeah. There's 2 of those. There's one that's failed and one that hasn't failed, but we think it probably likely to. So we'll have a slightly different treatment on that.
Just highlights my concerns. Thank you.
Carry on.
Yeah, just onto our depots.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Councillor.
Just one question, the focus on the northern end of the Rangatake, is that because there's a need there as opposed to the middle and southern end, or how will the work program look in the subsequent years? Will
Yeah.
it transfer into a different region?
This is targeted around efficiency. So we've got lots of machinery, trucks, plant to be concentrated in an area. So how it came about, we put our programs to NZTA for the 3-year block. we had 3 iterations of funding changes. So we ended up with quite a bit of a scattergun approach. So this year we've rationalised it so that we're not running around, doing reseals here, reseals there. We go there. So the next year we'll be in the south.
Question, Mary Ann?
Yeah, we've just done a lot of additional metal work around through O2 Pipe and through O2 Pipe Magahane area. In terms of the differential that we have against forestry, that generates, I think, around about $50,000, which I highlight as very, very small. But it has to be tagged back to the impact by forestry. So was that Metling covered to use part of that fund?
So it's probably a question for the end, but we've got set budgets within our GL structure. I'm not over how those budgets are all together with, say, a funding a forestry rate.
So I just wonder if there is a need to formally transfer from that fund back to roading with regard to that Metling, because it was a consequence of forestry operations through that section of the road.
That's possibly, your worship, but just occurs to me that's possibly a finance importance because it forms part of a rating structure. I understand where you're going, you'd like to see it captured as such, but it would go through to finance importance to tie into rates and how that's done. I would have thought, but I don't think it's something that we can address that in there, but I hear where you're going. It's an operational matter to double check on that.
Yeah, I've got to raise it somewhere, and that's probably a worthwhile position.
Yeah,
to
so
start.
you're aware of what Worship Mayor Andy has indicated?
I am, and through the chair, we have the road rating budget and we have other budgets. And that one, I think there's one in both roading and general rate. So I'll have to look at which activities they sit in and then see where that cost is fallen.
Yeah.
So I'll come back on that.
Just on that, 50,000 doesn't go very far when you're fixing logging damage. So I don't know if there's a opportunity to address that at some point. We're talking to Downer with that around haul routes and how that they affect our program. So it's big dollars. We're quite a long way through our. So how much? Maybe just about a half of our unsealed pavement maintenance budget already. Mostly forestry damage.
Through you, the chair, does that metal all have to come out at Kakariki, or does it can be sourced locally?
Yeah. Depends. We'll go for the closest quarry. But yeah, we're also looking at setting one up north as well. So crushing some metal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Depots. So you're aware we've purchased a property in Taihepe. Higgins have approached us and asked if we would consider sharing depot space with them long term. They've got a road renewal on their lease, so we can't do anything if we wanted to until 27. But Downer and Higgins have talked together and we think we can make it work. Just working out the details now with Graham Poynton on a longer term arrangement, but we'd probably still do it in 2-year renewal periods. So that would, give us an immediate relief. So we've got more space and also some security for Higgins because they've got the highway contract and they're expecting to get that back. So they want a presence in Taihepe. I think it's probably a win-win to keep on side with both contractors and also have another revenue stream for that property. Martin, we've got a few things in the fire there with King Street, Watercom and a building coming onto our King Street site. So basically going through the building a consent process and we're just about there. So not wanting to do any site prep or anything like that until we've got that ticked off. Hopefully that will be in the next week. Yeah. The next one, I brought this up at the last workshop, but this was vandalism that happened on Taihepe Napier Road again. Some young larrikins got loose and run a few signs over, about 52, I think, signs. So we managed to get them back up in some shape or form. within sort of 3 or 4 days. There are a few there that needed special materials, so I think we're just about done. And the cost is looking at 16 to 20 odd thousand, which once we get that complete cost in, I'll go back to the Toby Police and see if we can get some form of recovery.
Does that map indicate the areas?
Yeah, they're the broken signs here.
Disappointing, isn't it? Because it's money that can't be spent on other areas and roading, so this is extremely disappointing behaviour.
It's just waste, yeah.
They have the culprits.
They're young, under 16, 17 sort of year olds.
Yeah, disappointing, right, moving on.
Just an update that the Tiger Rally is coming back. No problems with any of the advertising that we've done, no objections. So they just pretty much self-sufficient. And Calico Line was the last thing, we talked about that just before. So that's pretty much it for me, apart from the traffic management comment before. I just confirmed that with Craig, the corridor access manager. Yeah, we are going with, it was March, not May. So between March and July, we'll implement it. This week, he's getting a list of all contractors that will be affected. So every contractor will be told that we're going this way.
It's worth just highlighting what that change will actually mean, Darren.
Yeah, so I'm not all over it, to be honest, but it's called a risk-based approach. So the contractor will look at each site before they go, make a decision based on a risk matrix. So they're not going to do a prescriptive traffic management plan for any site. It's dependent on their risk. So I think, when we get into some of our rural settings where we're not required to have that higher level, we can make a call. And whether it's a toot and wave type thing, or, the guy on the part of the crew is running the traffic management as well, it's up to them how they manage their risk.
I think, and that perhaps answers Mayor Andy's question from earlier on, but it just occurs to me, there will need to be some understanding of what the implications of that are and how that looks like, and they will need to be communicated, because it will be a change in what people are used to being seen. But comments like that still need to be captured for these minutes, particularly going forward to whatever the makeup of future assets and infrastructure committee might look like in the next triennium. So I think it's important that these things are captured and brought through as for an update. So perhaps that's a note for your next roading report, to, if you've had a time to get over it, as I appreciate you haven't really had a chance to look too much at this stage, but make sure it's captured and brought through in your next report.
Craig is definitely up all over it. So it's just.
Thank you. I'll move from the chair that the roading update report be received, seeking a seconder. Councillor Dalgety, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. We now move on to item 9.2, consent compliance report. Just before we step into this, Arno, this reporting seems to have changed somewhere. Is it?
Yes.
And perhaps you can just tell me what's changed before you perhaps go through it. But
Yeah.
I was trying to reference it back to the other one and think, where's the change?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it has changed. The last report that we brought to the committee, and this one looked the same, but the ones previous to that
Yes.
look different. The reason for that is we've taken the shared services back in-house, we now have a consent compliance officer that is an RDC employee. And what we're doing over time is we're catching up on all our consent and all our compliance, and we want to report in a way that makes a bit more sense.
Thank you.
And I'll talk a bit about that as we go through this. So there's still a bit of work to be done.
Yep.
All right, so we'll just.
Sorry.
No, it just looked like Worship had a question.
No, I do have a question, but I
Yes.
hadn't considered raising, but I'm happy to do so. I like the style, I like the detail, but I think we just have to be aware that putting this detail out, there needs to be some sort of glossary of terms. For instance, I know what FACE stands for, but I'd be surprised even if councillors in the room understand it. And for them to get merit out of it, there should be an explanation of what these actually are. Especially where like FACE and in red, Because that is a process, and maybe a glossary or an explanation of that would be useful for people.
Yes. The dreaded
Get to the
government
SME.
department of acronyms. There's probably one that exists somewhere. The government department of acronyms. Okay, perhaps we can capture that and step through this report.
Yeah.
Arno, as
Thank
to
you.
what it all means.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. The first one is compliance with our consents. So you can see on the, they were all compliant for the time period. Then we move on, 2.2 is now the drinking water quality. The first one is, and this is where I take on board what Andy is saying, is it's the compliance monitoring. And what I need to figure out with the team is if it says FACE, which is your free available chlorine equivalents, was there a problem with the monitoring and the recording of the monitoring, or did it go under the 0.2 limit once in that month? And I think that's something that needs to be cleared up so we can report a bit more accurately on what made it not compliant.
So just on that, when you see a non-compliant like that, what is the process that one follows? And like from at what stage do you see it, to we see it, to you have followed it up?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's always retrospective. We don't know until we've sent the samples away.
Yeah.
I think with these, what we will do is we'll go back to that day and see if there was something extraordinary that happened. So for instance, in Bulls, we are working on the filters.
Yeah.
Free chlorine is affected by organics that's available. It will absorb it real quick. We then have to report to Tamata ROI and explain what it was, and also show them that the drinking water was still safe across their day.
Okay.
So there's a whole other process.
There's a whole lot sitting in the background. So that was really what I was asking. What is the catches in the background? Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Just go back to table one. You've got everything's compliant there, but you've also got consents are expired in S124. Can you just explain what?
Yeah, that's right. So what happened with those, we actually submitted our new consent applications and they came back with further information requests, and we're in that process. So until that's completed, we are under existing use rights, and that's what that is 124 is.
Okay. Thanks, Sally. Cameron.
Thank you. So you step through them, you'll see that most of them is the FACE, so the free available chlorine equivalent. The only one that's different is Hunterville, where it says the DP, which is the differential pressure. What happens in our region, because we make use of surface water for our raw water tanks, when it rains in the winter, the water becomes quite muddy. And the differential pressure before and after the filters is what it measures. When it's muddy, the filter blocks up quicker and it exceeds that limit. Right. And then you'll see the last one in TIAP. The problem there is the continuous monitoring, not necessarily the parameters that it checks, but to be able to continuously monitor those is the challenge, and we are working on those. So that's a SCADA and recording issue.
What's the issue with the monitor? I thought we were all automated monitoring on most of these sites.
Yeah, we are. The problem with a lot of our sites is brownouts. The PLCs have to reset, and in that time, that's not recording, and then we are.
Okay.
It's those kind of.
There's a spike or something like that.
It trip us up, yeah.
It'll be a millisecond.
Okay. So you can then, if you've got to report back to Tamata ROI for your standards, you can report that and record that and know what that was,
Yeah,
what that spike may have been.
that's right. The unfortunate thing for us, we are non-compliant then for the year.
Yeah, because it's happened. Yeah, no, you've raised that comment before. It only happens once a year, but you're non-compliant because it's happened. So.
Okay, and then we move on to 2.2.2, which is then the chemical analysis of the water. And those are all compliant.
It's quite detailed when one thinks that it comes from the sky,
Yeah.
but there's a lot more involved in it.
Yeah.
And that, just I make that as an comment that getting it from the sky and into your taps and what's actually involved in the water has to be produced. That doesn't just arrive.
No, I just have to make the comment too, our consent compliance officer, Amy, she's done an excellent job, to be honest, to take us from where we were to where we are, and that goes with Mel, who is the manager of the operations. Both of them have put a lot of effort in, and we're not quite there, but we are looking a lot better than what we did a year ago. So thank you. Right, the next is the wastewater compliance. A lot more challenging for us. And we'll just step through. You'll see that there are effluent, there's volume, effluent, and environment that we have to comply on all of them. And we have non-compliance on different sections. So Martin is really on the environmental. So the measurements of BOD, turbidity, nitrogen, ammonia is really what trips us up. A lot of these are connected to algal growth in those big open air oxidation ponds that will send the BOD and the turbidity up.
And it's measured at the discharge.
Yeah, measured, well, it's a mixture. It's measured at the discharge, but also upstream and downstream in the stream itself. There's a very long list of them. Dye-happy volume is always going to be a problem for us. So dye-happy volume and huntable volume, the daily volumes and maximum volumes on the consents are incorrect. And we are not going to be able to comply with those until we change those consents.
And I acknowledge from the chair that that's an item that was brought to the committee many years ago. And it is, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it is what it is until such time as we address that matter. And we need to understand that there's always going to be red flags in those spaces.
That's right. Bulls, we've got a non-compliance in July for volume. And we're looking into that. That is for 19 days, we think that is rain related, and we will check the rainfall against the measurements and see if it is. And that kind of raises the flag for us to start with an I&I program down there as well.
Yeah.
We're trying to look across the whole district. We're spending a lot of time at Dye-happy and I&I at the moment, but we'll roll that out across the district. Mangaweka volume, and it would be the same issue with winter rainfall, but the other important one is the E. coli non-compliance. We have installed a new UV disinfection unit in Mangaweka. Between April and July, it's been commissioned and it's up and running, and we would expect that now to be back.
New or additional to?
New. Was, we've installed 2 new ones, one in Mangaweka, one at Hunterville. And you'll see Hunterville's got E. coli as a problem under effluent, and also DRP as phosphorus. Tricky one for us. Our phosphorus limit at Hunterville is extremely low. It's 0.01 parts per million. It is it's almost unachievable unless you apply a lot of ammonium salts or aluminium salts to the water. And if we do that, we exceed the aluminium. So one of those two.
Every action has a reaction. Yeah.
Ratana, we've got volume non-compliance, and Koitata, we've got the volume non-compliance.
With the other one, I was looking at that and, sorry, just. No samples taken, what does that indicate? Why is that because they're not required, or because you just don't do it?
No, it's so the yellow tells you it's not required at the moment, so that's a very
based on
small
the number of connections and other such things.
Yeah, and it's a very small oxidation pond out there, so I think the sampling requirements there is a lot less than. Some.
Have you ever taken samples from it?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, that's required by the consent.
Okay.
Also interesting, just to note that at the bottom there for Koitiata, the problem is the flow data connection is not working. So we obviously will work to fix that.
But hasn't that been raised some time ago, that flow data?
Well, they
I'm
could
sure
be.
that's come up before at previous,
I can have a look.
previous meetings, so I'm just wondering why if that's something needs to be addressed, why it hasn't been addressed.
I will follow up with
But
that.
I'm sure I've heard that comment before, maybe a few months ago, so it'd be interesting just to follow up as to what's happening with. Seeking questions at this stage, if that finalises the stage of your report. This is the last
It does,
item.
thank you. Yeah.
Looking for questions around. Seeking a move of the report by received, councillor Carter, thank you, councillor Sharlin, second. All those in favour? Aye, that motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.3. Project update report. Passing the talking stick back to you again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and we'll do what we do every month. We'll just step through them. So number one is Martin to Bulls centralisation. The one I'd like to pay attention to is that we have got indicative costings on the 6 options. So the 6 options on the first page, we have Tompkins and Taylor working on possible solutions with possible costings on those. And we have a workshop next week with them to step through to see, is there a way that we can consider other alternatives that might be more cost effective for us than what we've done with the certified. Once all of that's done, we're waiting for the wastewater standards across New Zealand to be finalised. And then we'll bring a report back to council to describe where we are and potential steps going forward.
But just point out and perhaps a little bit those online in particular. If we just go back to our previous report that we read and we had the issues of the non-compliance but over our 2 plants, this body of work is simply to try and address that at the same time, because we have these 2 plants both running on these expired consents. We know we've got some problems, so we can bring them together in one and try and address it. So this second body of work is really set to address the report. We saw these issues of non-compliance of these 2 plants. It's making people aware that these 2 things actually go hand in hand. One is the actual work that's been done to address the issues in the earlier report. So just raising that. Councillor Allen.
Can I just clarify, through you, Chair, I know, did I hear you say that there are 6 options and Tonkin and Taylor doing negative costings or?
Yeah, correct. So
What you said?
that's right.
Explain
Yes.
what that means.
So how this works is we've gone from a very long list to a short list to a short list. We got to the 6 options on the table. What we've said to Tonkin and Taylor, if you would have to design a plan to achieve these things, what would they look like and how much would they cost? Because I need to come back and have another discussion with councillors to say these are the options. We think, looking at all the things, this is the best one for our budgets and the environmental outcomes we want to achieve. Which one would you like to pursue? So this is the step now where they've come back with the costings. What we found is the costings are still really high. And these options include if we're going to move to the new standards, because we want to see what that looks like. So what we want to do is go back to them and say, we think we need to think a little bit harder about this and consider all options available and to see if there's something that looks a bit more cost effective than what we have.
Stepping through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the second one is the Ratana wastewater discharge to land. We are in the background looking at alternatives again to try and minimize costs and complexity. It is dependent though on the national wastewater standards, and we're waiting for those to be completed. Any questions on the Ratana? Then we move on to the Taipei wastewater treatment plant improvements project, and I take on board what the chair just mentioned. If you look at all of these, it's to alleviate those problems. The big item under this one is the inflow and infiltration work that we're doing in Taihape at the moment. We've progressed well, and very soon, I can't give you the exact date off the top of my head, but very soon we'll be doing checks on site in Taihape to see if we can figure out where most of the water's coming from and how do we go after it.
Have you, if I may just jump in there on that one, and I absolutely understand what the I&I project is and 100% agree with it, because if you don't know what's happening at the front end, how are you supposed to address what's happening at the back end? So I agree. Have we started to think, and I note that it says a strategy development, but surely we're a bit further down the line as if we've identified these things, what does that mean and how do we address it? And because there will be a budgetary impact on trying to address that. And there will be an impact potentially on some households up there. So are we thinking in that space already, or too soon to be doing that? Or?
Yeah, a very good question. It's too soon to do that. So we're collecting information now to say It looks to us like problem A, the contribution is about this much, and this is how much it will cost to go after it, and B, C, and D. And then we can quickly figure out what is the least cost for the biggest effect, and we'll go there first. But we have to first collect all the data and figure it out.
Yeah, thanks very much. Some of the impact on the ratepayers could be quite significant. And so what I'd like us to consider is, and we may not be in a position to do this, but consider having some contracted collective advice so that there is a source that somebody can go to that still would cost them, but rather than have individual property owners.
Yeah.
You know, we're giving some direction and options. Whether council in the future be a new council discussion as to whether, you know, council was prepared to loan fund against rates is another option.
I think, your worship, you've indicated your thinking is similar to mine there, and that there is a potential quite a big problem brewing here.
Yeah.
And some thought will need to be given to that. I know you've indicated that we really need to understand the size of the problem first before we can look to try and address it, but I would strongly encourage that for future council that be considered as with a degree of importance, because a plan's going to have to be put in place.
Yeah.
So I'll leave there at that. Thank you. Councillor, sorry, looking around.
Yeah, just one question on that. The investigations that you're doing, will the information gathered from that have any relevance to water leaking in the Taipi slip zone? Could that have applications towards understanding that problem?
No, this is interesting. This is water getting into the system rather than water getting out of the system and creating a problem. So it's kind of the opposite of that. While we are looking at the pipes in a lot more detail, we'll look at that as well. But it's really the opposite of that. It's continuous, and if you think of that slip zone, if there are cracks in these pipes, the water will be seeping into these pipes all the time, and it will actually make the situation better.
Thank you, Councillor Rakawa. Did I see your hand up?
Yes, just sorry to go back to 4.5, just for clarity, Arno. A second alternative of reticulating Koitiata and receiving flows at Koitiata from Ratana. You're looking at discharging, so the alternative is discharging to Koitiata to the sea, to the awa, is also being considered. As I see in 15.1, mana whenua have, so will you have a conversation if it gets anywhere near that?
Yes.
To just so that I'm clear to let.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's
there we
actually, thank you for bringing that up, because all this is at the moment, we're just looking at how much would that cost.
Yeah.
That's it. There's a long journey to start if we are actually going to consider doing that. But we thought if it comes back and the cost is 20 million, we'll spark it right now.
Thank you.
Councillor Longman.
Through you, Chair, just to bit more information about the Taipi inflow. I know you've said that the information is coming out, but looking at, is it looking more like water being stormwater being into the wastewater system, or is that sort of the main area we're looking at, or is there other? It's just to have the first indication.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, definitely it's for us to figure out there's a lot of stormwater getting into the wastewater system. So really the stormwater and the wastewater system should be completely separate. You should not get stormwater into the wastewater system. Although when we design, all engineers know that it's near impossible to prevent that all the time. So there is a design limit that we says it should not be more than whatever their limit is. So that's the bit that we're going after. In Taipi, it's a lot. It's putting a lot of pressure on the treatment because it gets now way too much water, and it's water with no food in it for the bugs. So it makes it really difficult. But what it means though is we need to physically look at, as an example, downpipe connections. Are they correct, or do they go into the gully traps? That's one example. Or if we look at 2 a.m, we lift the manhole and there's a lot of water in the wastewater, where's that coming from in that specific area? So then we start looking for that. So there's a lot of physical checking that needs to be done to figure out what's going on and where does it come from.
Thank you. Just on that subject, before we do move on. This is not pick on Tie Happy Day. This is actually a district-wide issue in all of our towns. Okay, it just so happens that this work that's starting up in Taipu is in conjunction with the other work that we're doing, but let's not underestimate how much of a problem this is district-wide, because it is a very, very big problem in all of our towns right throughout. Councillor Fee.
So just further to what you're saying, so is that kind of ad hoc inspections on individual properties as required, or do you say, let's go and look at every property in such and such a street?
Yeah, if we do the measurements up front and there's a certain catchment that's very high, so we can see how the pipe works, we would do all of that catchment. And we will walk along and check where the downpipes go, see what's
Okay,
going
thank
on, and
you.
then get a good feel for what's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Your Worship.
Can I just check, because this has been in national news, so when you walk along and you want to check the individual houses where the downpipes go, I know that legally you have a right of access, but what's going to be the process around somebody council staff member walking onto somebody's private property and walking around the house? Will there be a notification sent out ahead of time to all of those connections and say, this is what we're doing and these are the times, etc.? What's the process around this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just checking if it's not in there, but so what we do with this is a huge communication strategy to tell people what it's about, that people will be around. This is what we're going to look at. Don't be frightened when you see somebody with a high vis knocking on your door. So we would try as hard as we can not to enter anybody's private property without their consent. Sometimes because people are at work, it's not always possible, and that's what we have the warrants for, that we can do it if we have to, but the ideal would be to do a lot of communications, explain to people what it is, and then knock on the door.
I think we should trust the staff to actually try and convey that message in an appropriate fashion. If we can do that in conjunction with trying to understand the issue that we're trying to address, I think that would be appropriate, and it's certainly something that Carol, Arno and the team will take on board, I have no doubt.
Thank you very much. We can move along.
Water strategy.
Yeah, minor water strategy. So the testing continues. I think probably another 8 weeks of testing, I think, is in the program. The minute we have clarity on those results, we will move along with the design and go from there.
With regards to the testing, which is the next logical stage, to understand how it's going to work with the in conjunction with the nanofiltration. So the testing is set for a 12-week period, I believe. So we've done 4 weeks of testing now. So can you tell me what's being tested and how that's happening? How are we testing it, and what data is being recorded, and what are the outcomes that we hope to see from this testing?
Yeah. Yep. So we've done testing previously, but that was on the existing Tutanui bore.
Yeah.
What they identified there is iron manganese is a real problem. It blinds up the membranes real quick, and we need to try and remove that before it hits the membrane. So we've now shifted that trial plant up to the new bore and added to the new bore a way of removing the iron and manganese up front. That is dependent on the correct bacteria growing on a media. That takes a bit of time. So the real focus up there for us is actually that pre-treatment to see how that performs.
One would assume that the two waters are very much the same.
Very similar.
Yeah. Okay. So you're actually looking at a pre-treatment up there as part of your testing process as well.
Yeah. Something I just have to mention that's happened over the last week. We have engaged WSP as a consultant to sit with us to look at bits that is outside of the GFS scope. So they will be looking at the nanofiltration membranes and to install the new plant. But all the other items as to how we're going to connect the new plant to the existing, how would it fit into the existing footprint, all of those items will be covered by WSP. WSP also have process engineers and nanofiltration experts, and they will review the process as it goes along. So all the testing, the results, all of that will be reviewed by WSP as we go.
Have expertise in some of these areas.
Yeah, Randy?
I have been told that that WSP work will sit inside existing budgets. Is that the case? Just for the record.
Yeah.
It was a question I had. We're confident that it's, this
Yeah.
additional work is still within budget?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Kyle.
I have a question. So Arno, in my head, when I first understood why the water was funny, smelled and all that, was because the water coming from the reservoir and into the pipes, it was the iron manganese, it was the water was all right leaving there, but coming through the pipes, the iron manganese made it smell but you're saying,
No, that's a good question that you ask. The big problem for us in the dams, it's open to the weather. And you normally by December, January, when it gets nice and warm, that's when the smell and the taste starts. And that's because of algal blooms in the dam. So the algae then creates a chemical that creates that taste and that smell, and that's the real problem.
right, okay, all right, thank you.
And it's also, if I may add to that, it's also the time where the town starts to use its most water. Therefore, our treatment processes have to be, don't have the time to treat it at a slightly slower rate, because we're starting to use a lot more water, and we are required to keep an X amount of water, about 2/3 of our tank full at all time for emergency procedures. So that's another layer of complexity as to how we need to address and produce water. But thank you. Question.
Right, we'll move on to community facilities, and I'm happy to pass on to Ishwan.
For the Martin offices, we're still working through those implications from the soil contamination study. So last time we had reported that we are looking at two options. One is the existing urban design review, where the office building sits on the existing concreted car park area. And the other option we were evaluating was whether that building, because most of the contamination is around there, whether we could move the office building to the proposed car park area at the back. But what that does is, because the building was not supposed to be located there, we never did a geotech study there. The geotech study was pretty much surrounded here. So that will mean that we've got to engage a geotech survey again. So one is that. The second problem is, when we looked at the soil contamination report itself, right, because of how the testing locations were done, they were in two extremes, and there was one in the middle, and the middle location has a depth of about 800. So when you plot that into a drawing, basically what happens, from 400, you just draw a line to 800. From 800, you draw a line again back to 400. That looks like the contamination flows that way. But in reality, we think may not be the case. That could have been one isolated tank that was sitting deeper. So we're trying to organize more test locations just to evaluate that the 400 is probably linear, then just taking that angle down to 800. So that's happening. But we've kind of zoomed into putting the offices back on where it was originally proposed to be based on the urban design review. So that decision is made. In the meantime, ELT has also had the opportunity to look at all the spaces again, and we've made a final decision on it. So that's already gone to the architects.
Thank you. Any questions on that section of Ishmael's report? Understanding that it's a required process for builds to garner this level of information. Councillor,
I was just wondering whether that information will come via council and the government's board to for decision making, or
what information is that?
regarding the ELT discussion around what it looks like, what
I wonder if I can, I think this was what I talked about a couple of months ago, either in a workshop, just looking at the staff numbers. So it's really just numbers of staff, and then how many offices and meeting rooms we suggest that we have on the new build, but it will come back through as part of a design anyway. So it's really, it was reducing what we could rather than adding anything in.
I wasn't suggesting that, I was just.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ishmael. Moving on.
Happy Grandstand. We reported that we've got an offer from from Barry Copeland, which is not in line with what we had asked for. So we're still working through the viability of that option. So I think that'll come back to council end of this month for a review.
Be mindful on this one of an earlier decision to secure the available fundings to this project. Are we
Still-
we still?
It's still there, it's still ring fenced for this
Yeah.
project.
Thank you. Sorry, Ishwar.
Town hall, we've had a discussion with the user group on the concept design. And that's kind of finalized now. We're going ahead. The concept design is already signed off and the Maycroft is working on developed design now. Martin Swim Center, any questions on the tie-up?
Any questions regarding Tie Happy? Looking around the road at you, Jeff, and particularly your patch.
No, we're in Hampton User Group is in communications with Ishwar, so it's we'll come back to at the end of the council meeting.
Council, thank
More
you.
more information.
Item 10 largely being dealt with, I believe, and a decision has been made to move forward on that matter, which is encouraging. Where are we up to now? Scott's Ferry, I think that's been dealt with.
Yeah,
This is just to
what we've
close.
done, yeah,
close the
Okay.
platform.
it's just a short summary of things we've
Was there a decision that needed to be made for that to go through? Is it a council decision to do that? It was at the council that meeting that it was enacted. Okay, so that's an update.
Just an update, yeah.
Your worship.
Just to say that I was at Scott's Ferry and met with a number of the people at Scott's Ferry on the weekend. And they're comfortable where this sits. So
It's nice to see that one. We don't want to see Scott's Ferry fall off our radar, but it's nice to see that particular issue that has been impacting Scott's Ferry for some time. That's fall off our radar. It's a better terminology than.
the only thing they made a comment was that in terms of removal of wrecked vehicles, said you'd need to approach the council in terms of those as a separate issue.
Okay, that brings that part of the meeting to a close. Looking around, moving from the chair, that the project update report be received, seeking a seconder, councillor Carter, thank you. All those in favour? Aye, against, that motion is carried. What does that take us to now? Well, that's exciting, takes us to a close. Just before I come to a close of the meeting, once again, thank you for your attendance, thanks for your work and diligence over the last 3 years. It has been appreciated. And I once again would like to reiterate that it is my opinion that you have all acted with the integrity and the interests of the people of Rangitikei at heart. So thanks again for your work. Well done.